Wait. Hold up. Horace, where's the slide? The slide! You know, the slide we prepared. The one that we were going to do the announcement about the public domain day reading. You know, we planned it out. I mean, we had this whole thing. There was going to be this narration, you know, the whole previously on Matsu Quinox. And then we were going to do a whole thing in the style of classic, well, what do you call it? A British mystery television series. I had my costume ready. You had your costume ready. We were going to have this all out. Where is it? What do you mean we ran out of budget? When do you have a budget? What do you mean Virgil spent it all? We don't even have money. Hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go talk to him. This of all the times this has to. What did I just triple? Horace, why is there a life-size backdrop of Michelangelo's David? I mean, oh wow, he is a big one. Never mind. What is it doing here? The life-size model of Jane Austen was feeling lonely. Was that supposed to be a joke? That's not funny. Oh, never mind. I'm just gonna go to the reading room and we're just gonna start this all over again like we usually do. We'll just have to do something like this next time. I don't know what's going into them. I mean, come on, for goodness sake. Wait. Hello. Greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of greeting across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the. No, not this slide. Give it back. Bring it back. There. Study. Oh, my goodness gracious. As you can tell, my dear scholars, we're having some difficulty with the staff. Virgil. But here we are. All again. Union 20. Oh, Horace. Horace. I can't even blame Horace. Let me see. Hello there, Sophia Ignace. Congratulations on getting first and subscribe for 41 months. Oh my goodness, so long. Oh, Firefly, good evening. Yulian 20, good evening. Kintron, hello there. That's what she. That's what she. I'm not even going to answer that. You all think this is funny, don't you? Don't. Horse, don't laugh! Dignity, Matsu. Dignity, always with dignity. Hello there, Private Maverick. Welcome. Hello there, Dr. Zadium. Welcome, all my marvelous, wonderful scholars to the study. How are you all doing? Yulian 20, get back here. I am back here. Kidtron, don't you dare start laughing. Don't you dare. How is your day, my dear scholars? Dr. Zadium, doing well. Good. Glad to hear that. Oh. Julian 20, meh. Sophia Ignace, I'm alive. Well, I'm glad you're alive, Sophia, and I'm glad you're here. It's always wonderful to have you here. I'm sorry to hear you're meh, Julian 20. I know things might be a bit dark in places, but, you know, consider the study a nice place to comfort yourselves and to have a way to de-stress. That's what I'm here for. Kintron slept through half of it somehow. Ooh. Wow. Oh dear. Well, you must have been sleepy, Wolf. Julian 20, you think? That's why I'm here. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here, Julian 20. Oh my goodness gracious. But yes, yes, here we all are in the study. I had this big thing planned for all of you, my dear scholars. This wonderful, amazing intro. Oh my goodness, it was going to have animation, it was going to have slideshows, it was going to be illustrated in watercolor and narration, and apparently it's all gone. Kid Sean, and I did not teach Virgil how to use a credit card. Kintron, that sounds incredibly specific for some reason. Incredibly specific. If I had a button right now that said doubt, it would be appearing right above my head. I'll have to talk to Virgil after the stream. But yes, as for me, yeah, things have been quiet. Okay, I'm trying to be a little bit positive for all you dear scholars. And well, I'm here for you on this special stream evening. Where was I? Oh, but yes, I digress. So, as all of you know it, January 1st is Public Domain Day when certain items become in the public domain. Movies, music, books, plays, all sorts of things. And this year, my dear scholars, why did I grab it? You can't see it. This year, the year 1930 is now in the public domain. Isn't that fantastic? Isn't that amazing? Oh my goodness, we are well into the sound era now, finally for movies. And I chose for tonight's reading a book that has just gone into the public domain. I want to check something quick before I forget. Okay. Yes, bravo, you. Tonight, we'll be reading Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage, the very first Miss Marple mystery. I'm sure some of you have, of course, heard of Agatha Christie. There's no need for introduction. One of the best-selling authors in the world. Also wrote Poirot mysteries, Tuppence, Tommy and Tuppence. A score of so many books. And then there were none. And Miss Marple was one of her most beloved. And today we are going to be reading the first novel that she was in. I think she was in short stories, though, before that. So this isn't her first appearance, I don't think. And it's not the first appearance of the setting, which is St. Mary Mead, which is appeared in a Poirot story, although apparently it's not the same location. But I am really excited to read. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. So, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, shall we begin our reading of Agatha Christie and dive head first into this mystery? Oh my goodness gracious, this is exciting. This is really exciting. And to make up for the disappointment that was our reading, they're saying little gray cells say yes. That is not Miss Marple, but I will take that yes as an affirmative. Kintron, never accept a cup of tea from Agatha. That is very true. Never. So then, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage, dim the lights if you wish, and let us begin our reading of Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage. Chapter 1. It is difficult to know quite where to begin this story, but I have fixed my choice on a certain Wednesday at luncheon at the Vicarage. Kinchanshi is one of the reasons why so many authors have fun search histories, though. Oh, interesting, interesting. The conversation, though in the main irrelevant to the matter in hand, yet contained one or two suggestive incidents which influenced later developments. I had just finished carving some boiled beef, remarkably tough, by the way, and on resuming my seat I remarked in a spirit most unbecoming to my cloth that anyone who murdered Colonel Prothero would be doing the world at large a service. My young nephew Dennis said instantly, "That'll be remembered against you when the old boy is found bathed in blood. Mary will give evidence, won't you, Mary, and describe how you brandish the carving knife in a vindictive manner?" Mary, who is in service at the vicarage as a stepping stone to better things and higher wages, merely said in a loud, business-like voice, "Greens," and thrust a cracked dish at him in a truculent manner. My wife said in a sympathetic voice, "Has he been very trying?" I did not reply at once, for Mary, setting the greens on the table with a bang, proceeded to thrust a dish of singularly moist and unpleasant dumplings under my nose. I said, "No, thank you," and she deposited the dish with a clatter on the table and left the room. "It is a pity that I am such a shocking housekeeper," said my wife with a tinge of genuine regret in her voice. I was inclined to agree with her. My wife's name is Griselda, a highly suitable name for a parson's wife, but there the suitability ends. She is not in the least meek. Dr. Zadium banged, thrusts moist. Oh my! Oh, Dr. Zadium, no! No, we are trying to keep a low rating here. I have always been of the opinion that a clergyman should be unmarried. Why I should have urged Griselda to marry me at the end of 24 hours' acquaintance is a mystery to me. Marriage I have always held is a serious affair, to be entered into only after long deliberation and forethought, and suitability of tastes and inclinations is the most important consideration. Dr. Zadium, she said it, not me. LOL. Griselda is nearly 20 years younger than myself. She is most distractingly pretty, and quite incapable of taking anything seriously. She is incompetent in every way, and extremely trying to live with. Oh my goodness, what? Talking about his wife in such a manner already? She treats the parish as a kind of huge joke arranged for her amusement. I have endeavored to form her mind, and failed. I am more than ever convinced that celibacy is desirable for the clergy. I have frequently hinted as much to Griselda, but she has only laughed. "My dear," "My dear," I said, "if you would only exercise a little care—" "I do sometimes," said Griselda, "but on the whole I think things go worse when I'm trying. I'm evidently not a housekeeper by nature. I find it better to leave things to Mary, and just make up my mind to be uncomfortable and have nasty things to eat." "And what about your husband, my dear?" I said reproachfully, and proceeded to follow the example of the devil in quoting Scripture for his own ends. I added, "She looketh to the ways of our household." "Think how lucky you are not to be torn to pieces by lions," said Griselda, quickly interrupting, "or burnt at the stake. Bad food and lots of dust and dead wasps is really nothing to make a fuss about. Tell me more about Colonel Prothero. At any rate, the early Christians were lucky enough not to have churchwardens." "Pompous old brute," said Dennis. "No wonder his first wife ran away from him." "I don't see what else she could do," said my wife. "Griselda," I said sharply, "I will not have you speaking in that way." "Darling," said my wife affectionately, "tell me about him. What was the trouble? Was it Mr. Hawes becking and nodding and crossing himself every other minute?" "Hawes is our new curate. He has been with us just over 3 weeks. He has high church views and fasts on Fridays. Colonel Prothero is a great opposer of ritual in any form. Not this time. He did touch on it in passing. No, the whole trouble arose out of Mrs. Price Ridley's wretched pound note. Mrs. Price Ridley, not Ridley, Ridley is a devout member of my congregation. Attending early service on the anniversary of her son's death, she put a pound note in the offertory bag. Later, reading the amount of the collection posted up, she was pained to observe that 1 10-shilling note was the highest item mentioned. She complained to me about it, and I pointed out very reasonably that she must have made a mistake. We're none of us so young as we were, I said, trying to turn it off tactfully, and we must pay the penalty of advancing years. Strangely enough, my words only seemed to incense her further. She said that things had a very odd look, and that she was surprised I didn't think so also. And she flounced away, and I gather took her troubles to Colonel Prothero. Prothero is the kind of man who enjoys making a fuss on every conceivable occasion. He made a fuss. It is a pity he made it on a Wednesday. I teach in the church day school on Wednesday mornings, a proceeding that causes me acute nervousness and leaves me unsettled for the rest of the day. This is so much fun to read, my dear scholars. I can't help it. I know I shouldn't break character there, but oh my goodness, this is so much fun to read. Well, I suppose he must have some fun, said my wife, with the air of trying to sum up the position impartiality. Nobody flutters round him and calls him the dear vicar, and embroiders awful slippers for him, and gives him bed socks for Christmas. Both his wife and his daughters are fed up to the teeth with him. I suppose it makes him happy to feel important somewhere. He needn't be offensive about it, I said with some heat. I don't think he quite realized the implications of what he was saying. He wants me to go over all the church accounts in the case of deflecations. That was the word he used. Deflecations. Does he suspect me of embezzling the church's funds? Nobody would suspect you of anything, darling, said Griselda. You're so transparently above suspicion that really it would be a marvelous opportunity. I wish you'd embezzle the SPG funds. I hate missionaries. I always have. I would have reproved her for that sentiment, but Mary entered at that moment with a partially cooked rice pudding. I made a mild protest, but Griselda said that the Japanese always ate half-cooked rice and had marvelous brains in consequence. What a lie that is! Oh dear. I dare say, she said, that if you had a rice pudding like this every day off till Sunday, you'd preach the most marvelous sermon. Heaven forbid, I said with a shudder. Prothero's coming over tomorrow evening, and we're going over the accounts together, I went on. I must finish preparing my talk for the CEMS today. Looking up a reference, I became so engrossed in Canon Shirley's reality that I haven't got on as well as I should. What are you doing this afternoon, Griselda? My duty, said Griselda. My duty as the vicaress. Tea and scandal at 4:30. Who is coming? Griselda ticked them off on her fingers with a glow of virtue on her face. Mrs. Price Ridley, Miss Weatherby, Miss Hartnell, and that terrible Miss Marple. I rather like Miss Marple, I said. She has at least a sense of humour. Oh, she is the worst cat in the village, said Griselda, and she always knows every single thing that happens, and draws the worst inferences from it. Griselda, as I have said, is much younger than I am. At my time of life, one knows that the worst is usually true. Well, don't expect me in for tea, Griselda, said Dennis. Beast! said Griselda. Yes, but look here, the Prothrows really did ask me for tennis today. Beast, said Griselda again. Dennis beat a prudent retreat, and Griselda and I went together into my study. I wonder what we shall have for tea, said Griselda, sitting herself on my writing table. Dr. Stone and Miss Cram, I suppose, and perhaps Mrs. Lestrange. By the way, I called on her yesterday, but she was out. Yes, I'm sure we shall have Mrs. Lestrange for tea. It's so mysterious, isn't it? Her arriving like this and taking a house down here, and hardly ever going outside it. Makes one think of detective stories, you know. Who was she? The mysterious woman with the pale, beautiful face. What was her past history? Nobody knew. There was something faintly sinister about her. I believe Dr. Haydock knows something about her. You read too many detective stories, Griselda, I observed mildly. What about you? She retorted. I was looking everywhere for the stain on the stairs the other day when you were in here writing a sermon. And at last I came in to ask you if you'd seen it anywhere. And what did I find? I had the grace to blush. Oh, hello there, Yumiko. Welcome. Thank you for the posture check. Good to see you. We are reading The Murder in the Vicarage. Now, where was I had the grace to blush. I picked it up at random. A chance sentence caught my eye. I know those chance sentences, said Griselda. She quoted impressively. And then a very curious thing happened. Griselda rose, crossed the room, and kissed her elderly husband affectionately. She suited the action to the word. Is that a very curious thing? I inquired. Of course it is, said Griselda. Do you realize, Len, that I might have married a cabinet minister, a baronet, a rich company promoter, three subalterns, and a ne'er-do-well with attractive manners, and that instead I chose you? Didn't it astonish you very much? At the time it did, I replied. I have often wondered why you did it. Griselda laughed. It made me feel so powerful, she murmured. The others thought me simply wonderful, and of course it would have been very nice for them to have me. But I'm everything you most dislike and disapprove of, and yet you couldn't withstand me. My vanity couldn't hold out against that. It's so much nicer to be a secret and delightful sin to anybody than to be a feather in their cap. I make you frightfully uncomfortable and stir you up the wrong way the whole time, and yet you adore me madly. You adore me madly, don't you? Naturally, I am very fond of you, my dear. Oh, Len, you adore me. Do you remember that day when I stayed up in town and sent you a wire you never got because the postmistress's sister was having twins and she forgot to send it round? The state you got into, and you telephoned Scotland Yard and made the most frightful fuss. There are things one hates being reminded of. I had really been strangely foolish on the occasion in question. I said, if you don't mind, dear, I want to get on with the CEMS. Griselda gave a sigh of intense irritation, ruffled my hair up on end, smoothed it down again, said, You don't deserve me. You really don't. I'll have an affair with the artist. I will, really and truly. And then think of the scandal in the parish. There's a good deal already, I said mildly. Griselda laughed, blew me a kiss, and departed through the window. Yumiko, I love when the language is old. Well, this is 1930s, so yeah, it's fairly old. The chapters here are somewhat short. Excuse me. Thankfully. Excuse me. All right. Chapter 2. Griselda is a very irritating woman. On leaving the luncheon table, I had felt myself to be in a good mood for preparing a really forceful address for the Church of England Men's Society. Now I felt restless and disturbed. Just when I was really settling down to it, Lettuce Prothrow drifted in. I use the word drifted advisedly. I have read novels in which young people are described as bursting with energy. Joe de Vere, the magnificent vitality of youth. Personally, all the young people I come across have the air of animal wraiths. Lettuce was particularly wraith-like this afternoon. She is a pretty girl, very tall and fair, and completely vague. She drifted through the French window, absently pulled off the yellow beret she was wearing, and murmured vaguely with a kind of farewell surprise, "Oh, it's you." There's a path from Old Hall through the woods which comes out by our garden gate, so that most people coming from there come in at that gate and up to the study window instead of going a long way round by the road and coming to the front door. I was not surprised at Lettuce coming in this way, but I did a little resent her attitude. If you come to a vicarage, you ought to be prepared to find a vicar. She came in and collapsed in a crumpled heap in one of my big armchairs. She plucked aimlessly at her hair, staring at the ceiling. "Is Dennis anywhere about?" "I haven't seen him since lunch. I understood he was going to play tennis at your place." "Oh," said Lettuce. "I hope he isn't. He won't find anybody there." "He said you asked him." "I believe I did. Only that was Friday, and today's Tuesday." "It's Wednesday," I said. "Oh, how dreadful," said Lettuce. "That means that I've forgotten to go to lunch with some people for the third time." Fortunately, it didn't seem to worry her much. "Is Griselda anywhere about?" "I expect you'll find her in the studio in the garden, sitting to Lawrence Redding." There's been quite a snozzle about him," said Lettuce. "With father, you know. Father's dreadful." "What was the whatever it was about?" I inquired. "Oh, 1 second, my dear scholars. I don't think my mod is here, so I have to take care of something." There we are. Okay, where was I? Oh, yes. What kind of name is Lettuce, by the way? Is that a proper name? I've never heard of a name like that. "About his painting me. Father found out about it. Why shouldn't I be painted in my bathing dress? If I go on a beach in it, why shouldn't I be painted in it?" Julian 20, like food spelled out, like exactly like the food, like lettuce. It's spelled like the food, lettuce. Lettuce paused and then went on. "It's really absurd. Father forbidding a young man the house. Of course, Lawrence and I simply shriek about it. I shall come and be done here in your studio." "No, my dear," I said, "not if your father forbids it." "Oh, dear," said Lettuce, sighing. "How tiresome everybody is. I feel shattered. Definitely. If only I had some money, I'd go away. But without it, I can't. If only father would be decent and die, I should be all right." You must not say things like that, Lettuce. Well, if he doesn't want me to want him to die, he shouldn't be so horrible over money. I don't want her mother left him. Do you know, for years I believed she was dead. What sort of a young man did she run away with? Was he nice? It was before your father came to live here. I wonder what's become of her. I expect Ange will have an affair with someone soon. Anne hates me. She's quite decent to me, but she hates me. She's getting old and she doesn't like it. That's the age you break out, you know. I wondered if Lettuce was going to spend the entire afternoon in my study. You haven't seen my gramophone records, have you? She asked. No. How tiresome. I know I've left them somewhere, and I've lost the dog. And my wristwatch is somewhere. Only it doesn't much matter because it won't go. Oh, dear, I am so sleepy. I can't think why. Because I didn't get up till 11. But life's very shattering, don't you think? Oh, dear, I must go. I'm going to see Dr. Stone's burrow at 3 o'clock. I glanced at the clock and remarked that it was now 5:20 to 4. Oh, is it? How dreadful. I wonder if they've waited, or if they've gone without me. I suppose I better go down and do something about it. She got up and drifted out again, murmuring over her shoulder. You'll tell Dennis, won't you? I said yes, mechanically, only realizing too late that I had no idea what it was I was to tell Dennis. But I reflected that in all probability it did not matter. I fell to cogitating on the subject of Dr. Stone, a well-known archaeologist who had recently come to stay at the Blue Boar, whilst he superintended the excavation of a burrow situated on Colonel Prothero's property. There had been already, excuse me, my dear scholars, tripping over my own tongue. There had already been several disputes between him and the colonel. I was amused at his appointment to take Lettuce to see the operations. It occurred to me that Lettuce Prothero was something of a minx. I wondered how she would get on with the archaeologist's secretary, Miss Cram. Miss Cram is a healthy young woman of 25, nosy in manner, with a high color, fine animal spirits, and a mouth that always seems to have more than its full share of teeth. Village opinion is divided as to whether she is no better than she should be, or else a young woman of iron virtue who purposes to become Mrs. Stone at an early opportunity. She is in every way a great contrast to Lettuce. I could imagine that the state of things at Old Hall might not be too happy. Colonel Prothero had married again some 5 years previously. The second Mrs. Prothero was a remarkably handsome woman in a rather unusual style. I'd always guessed that the relations between her and her stepdaughter were not too happy. I had one more interruption. This time it was my curate, Hawes. He wanted to know the details of my interview with Prothero. I told him that the colonel had deplored his Romanist tendencies, but that the real purpose of his visit had been on quite another matter. At the same time, I entered a protest of my own and told him plainly that I must conform to my ruling. On the whole, he took my remarks very well. I felt rather remorseful when he had gone for not liking him better. These irrational likes and dislikes that one takes to people are, I am sure, very unchristian. With a sigh, I realized that the hands of the clock on my writing table pointed to 4:45, a sign that it was really 4:30, and I made my way to the drawing room. Oh, so wait, so his clock doesn't work? Because it said the hands on his clock on the writing table pointing to 4:45, a sign that was really 4:30, so the clock doesn't work, it sounds like. I wonder if that's important. Give me a second, my dear scholars. I have to open up another bottle of water. Agatha Christie always preferred Miss Marple to Poirot. Unit 20, everything is important. Yes, yes. So let's keep our eyes and ears peeled, my dear scholars. Four of my parishioners were assembled there with teacups. Griselda sat behind the tea table trying to look natural in her environment, but only succeeded in looking more out of place than usual. I shook hands all round and sat down between Miss Marple and Miss Weatherby. Miss Marple is a white-haired old lady with a gentle, appealing manner. Miss Weatherby is a mixture of vinegar and gush. Of the two, Miss Marple is much the more dangerous. "We were just talking," said Griselda in a honey-sweet voice, "about Dr. Stone and Miss Cram." A ribald rhyme concocted by Dennis shot through my head. Oh, this, I'm going to have to swear, my dear scholars, I'm sorry. Miss Cram doesn't give a damn. Sorry, my dear scholars, sorry for your ears. I had a sudden yearning to say it out loud and observe the effect, but fortunately I refrained. Miss Weatherby said tersely, "No nice girl would do it," and shut her thin lips disapprovingly. "Do what? Do what?" I inquired. Dr. Zadam is scandalized. "I'm sorry! I'm sorry! I'm really sorry." "Do what?" I inquired. "Be a secretary to an unmarried man," said Miss Weatherby in a horrified tone. "Oh, my dear," said Miss Marple, "I think married ones are the worst. Remember poor Molly Carter?" "Married men living apart from their wives are of course notorious," said Miss Willoughby. "And even some of the ones living with their wives," murmured Miss Marple. "I remember—" I interrupted these unsavory reminiscences. "But surely," I said, "in these days a girl can take a post in just the same way as a man does." "To come away to the country and stay at the same hotel?" said Mrs. Price Ridley in a severe voice. Miss Weatherby murmured to Miss Marple in a low voice, "And all the bedrooms on the same floor?" Miss Hartnell, who in a weather-beaten and jolly and much dreaded by the poor, observed in a loud, hearty voice, "The poor man will be caught before he knows where he is. He's as innocent as a babe unborn. You can see that." Curious what turns of phrase we employ. None of the ladies present would have dreamed of alluding to an actual baby that was safely in the cradle, visible to all. "Disgusting, I call it," continued Miss Hartnell, with her usual tactlessness. "The man must be at least 25 years older than she is." Three female voices rose at once, making disconnected remarks about the choir boys' outing, the regrettable incident at the last mothers' meeting, and the drafts in the church. Miss Marple twinkled at Griselda. "Don't you think," said my wife, "that Miss Cram just may just like having an interesting job, and that she considers Dr. Stone just an employer?" There was a silence. Evidently none of the four ladies agreed. Miss Marple broke the silence by patting Griselda on the arm. "My dear," she said, "you are very young. The young have such innocent minds." Griselda said indignantly that she hadn't got at all an innocent mind. "Naturally," said Miss Marple, unheeding of the protest. "You think the best of everyone." "Do you really think she wants to marry that bald-headed, dull man?" "Oh, I understand he is quite well off," said Miss Marple. "Rather a violent temper, I'm afraid. He had quite a serious quarrel with Colonel Prothero the other day." Everyone leaned forward interestingly. Interestingly, is that a word? Mm. Colonel Prothero accused him of being an ignoramus. "How like Colonel Prothero, and how absurd!" said Mrs. Price Ridley. "Very like Colonel Prothero, but I don't know about it being absurd," said Miss Marple. "You remember the woman who came down here and said she represented welfare, and after taking subscriptions she was never heard of again, and proved to have nothing whatever to do with welfare. One is so inclined to be trusting, and take people at their own valuation." "I should never have dreamed of describing Miss Marple as trusting." Oh my goodness, wow, that is a dig. I'm trying to remember Miss Weatherby. So many voices. "There's been some fuss about that young artist, Mr. Redding, hasn't there?" asked Miss Weatherby. Miss Marple nodded. "Colonel Prothero turned him out of the house. It appears he was painting lettuce in her bathing dress." "I always thought there was something between them," said Mrs. Price Ridley. "That young fellow is always mooching off up there. Pity the girl hasn't got a mother. A stepmother is never the same thing." I dare say Mrs. Prothero does her best," said Mrs. Hartnell. "Girls are so sly," deplored Mrs. Price Ridley. "Quite romantic, isn't it?" said the soft-hearted Miss Weatherby. "He's a very good-looking young fellow." "But loose," said Mrs. Hartnell. "Bound to be. An artist, Paris, models, the all together. Painting her in her bathing dress." This is so much gossip, my dear scholars. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I feel kind of wrong listening to this, said Mrs. Price Ridley. "Not quite nice." "He's painting me too," said Griselda. But not in your bathing dress, dear," said Miss Marple. It might be worse," said Griselda solemnly. "Naughty girl," said Miss Hartnell, taking the joke broad-mindedly. Everyone else looked slightly shocked. "Did dear Lettuce tell you of the trouble?" asked Miss Marple of me. "Tell me." "Yes. I saw her pass through the garden and go round to the study window." Miss Marple always sees everything. Gardening is as good as smoke-screen, and the habit of observing birds through powerful glasses can always be turned to account. "She mentioned it, yes," I admitted. Mr. Hawes looked worried," said Miss Marple. "I hope he hasn't been working too hard." "Oh!" cried Miss Weatherby excitedly. "I quite forgot. I knew I had some news for you. I saw Dr. Haydock coming out of Mrs. Lestrain's cottage." Everyone looked at each other. "Perhaps she's ill," suggested Mrs. Price Ridley. "It must have been very sudden if so," said Miss Hartnell, "for I saw her walking round her garden at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and she seemed in perfect health." "She and Dr. Haydock must be old acquaintances," said Mrs. Price Ridley. "He's been very quiet about it." "It's curious," said Miss Witherby, "that he's never mentioned it." "As a matter of fact," said Grizel, Griselda in a low, mysterious voice, and stopped. Everyone leaned forward excitedly. I'm going to dress my voice a little bit from the main bag thing. I happen to know, said Griselda impressively. Her husband was a missionary. Terrible story. He was eaten, you know, actually eaten, and she was forced to become the chief's head wife. Dr. Haydock was with an expedition and rescued her. Seriously. I very much doubt that actually happened. I suppose that's the sort of gossip you might expect in a little village like that. For a moment, excitement was rife. Then Miss Marple said reproachfully, but with a smile, Naughty girl. She tapped Griselda reprovingly on the arm. Very unwise thing to do, my dear. If you make up these things, people are quite likely to believe them, and sometimes that leads to complications. Kinshon, anything that happens in small towns, everyone hears in minutes. That is true. That is absolutely true. A distinct frost had come over the assembly. Two of the ladies rose to take their departure. I wonder if there's anything between young Lawrence Redding and Lettice Prothero, said Mrs. Willoughby. It certainly looks like it. What do you think, Miss Marple? Miss Marple seemed thoughtful. I shouldn't have said so myself. Not Lettice. Quite another person, I should have said. But Colonel Prothero must have thought... He has always struck me as a rather stupid man, said Miss Marple, the kind of man who gets the wrong idea into his head and is obstinate about it. Do you remember Joe Bucknell, who used to keep the Blue Ball? Such a to-do about his daughter carrying on with young Bailey. And all the time it was that minx of a wife of his. She was looking full at Griselda as she spoke, and I suddenly felt a wild surge of anger. Don't you think, Miss Marple, I said, that we're all inclined to let our tongues run away with us too much? Charity thinketh no evil, you know. Inestimable harm may be done by foolish wagging of tongues and ill-natured gossip. Dear Vicar, said Miss Marple, you are so unworldly. I'm afraid that observing human nature for as long as I have done, one gets not to expect very much from it. I dare say the idle tittle-tattle is very wrong and unkind, but it is so often true, isn't it? That last Parthian shot went home. So I think we can manage maybe one or two more chapters, my dear scholars. But yes, that was interesting. A little bit of gossip there. And we've already got a sense of what Miss Marple's like. She's an observer. She chats a lot. But she's very much knowledgeable of her surroundings. And very much, let's say, knows things. But she's not unkind. She doesn't seem unkind. Excuse me. Excuse me. I better get another drink. Alright, we'll continue to chapter 3 then. But I'm loving this story already. It's very different. I've read Poirot, of course, on this stream before a few times, but this is very different. Chapter 3. Nasty old cat, said Griselda as soon as the door was closed. She made a face in the direction of the departing visitors, and then looked at me and laughed. Len, do you really suspect me of having an affair with Lawrence Redding? My dear, of course not. But you thought Miss Marple was hinting at it, and you rose to my defense simply beautifully, like an angry tiger. A momentary uneasiness assailed me. A clergyman of the Church of England ought never to put himself in the position of being described as an angry tiger. I felt the occasion could not pass without a protest. I said, "But Griselda, I wish you would be a little more careful in what you say." "Do you mean the cannibal story?" she asked, "or the suggestion that Lawrence was painting me in the nude?" If only they knew that he was painting me in a thick cloak with a very high fur collar, the sort of thing that would go quite purely to see the Pope in. Not a bit of sinful flesh showing anywhere. In fact, it's all marvelously pure. Lawrence never even attempts to make love to me. I can't think why. Surely, knowing that you're a married woman. Don't pretend to come out of the ark, Len. You know very well an attractive young woman with an elderly husband is a kind of gift from heaven to a young man. There must be some other reason. It's not that I'm unattractive. I'm not. Surely you don't want him to make love to you? N- no, said Griselda with more hesitation than I thought becoming. If he's in love with Lettice Porthroy, Miss Marple didn't seem to think he was. Miss Marple may be mistaken. She never is. That kind of old cat is always right. She paused a moment and then said with a quick sidelong glance at me, "You do believe me, don't you? I mean that there's nothing between Lawrence and me." "My dear Griselda," I said, surprised, "of course." My wife came across and kissed me. "I wish you weren't so terribly easy to deceive, Len. You'd believe me whatever I said." "I should hope so. But, my dear, I do beg of you to guard your tongue, and be careful of what you say. These women are singularly deficient in humor, remember, and take everything seriously." "What they need," said Griselda, "is a little immorality in their lives. Then they wouldn't be so busy looking for it in other people's." And on this she left the room, and glancing at my watch, I hurried out to pay some visits that ought to have been made early in the day. Excuse me again. Unit 20. Everyone loves her except the bad guys. We don't even know who the bad guys are yet in this story. Oh, you mean in mysteries overall? Oh. The Wednesday evening service was sparsely attended as usual, but when I came out through the church after disrobing in the vestry, it was empty, save for a woman who stood staring up at one of our windows. We have some rather fine old stained glass, and indeed the church itself is well worth looking at. She turned at my footsteps, and I saw that it was Mrs. Lestrade. We both hesitated a moment, and then I said, "I hope you like our little church." "I've been admiring the screen," she said. Her voice was pleasant, low, yet very distinct, with a clear-cut enunciation. She added, "I'm sorry to have missed your wife yesterday." We talked a few minutes longer about the church. She was evidently a cultured woman who knew something of church history and architecture. We left the building together and walked down the road, since one way to the vicarage led past her house. As we arrived at the gate, she said pleasantly, "Come in, won't you, and tell me what you think of what I have done." I accepted the invitation. Little Gates had formerly belonged to an Anglo-Indian colonel, and I could not help feeling relieved by the disappearance of the brass tables and Burmese idols. It was furnished now very simply, but in exquisite taste. There was a sense of harmony and rest about it. Yet I wondered more and more what had brought such a woman as Miss Lestrade to late St. Mary Mead. She was so very clearly a woman of the world that it seemed a strange taste to bury herself in a country village. In the clear light of her drawing room, I had an opportunity of observing her very closely for the first time. She was a very tall woman. Her hair was gold with a tinge of red in it. Her eyebrows and eyelashes were dark, whether by art or by nature I could not decide. If she was, as I thought, made up, it was done very artistically. There was something sphinx-like about her face when it was in repose, and she had the most curious eyes I have ever seen. They were almost golden in shade. Her clothes were perfect, and she had all the ease of manner of a well-bred woman, and yet there was something about her that was incongruous and baffling. You felt that she was a mystery. The word Griselda had used occurred to me. Sinister. Absurd, of course, and yet was it so absurd? The thought sprang unbidden into my mind. This woman would stick it at nothing. Our talk was on most normal lines pictures, books, old churches, yet somehow I got very strongly the impression that there was something else, something of quite a different nature that Miss Lestrade wanted to say to me. I caught her eye on me once or twice, looking at me with a curious hesitancy, as though she was unable to make up her mind. She kept the talk, I noticed, strictly to impersonal subjects. She made no mention of a husband or relations. Excuse me. But all the time there was that strange urgent appeal in her glance. It seemed to say, "Shall I tell you? I want to. Can't you help me?" Yet in the end it died away, or perhaps it had all been my fancy. I had the feeling that I was being dismissed. I rose and took my leave. As I went out of the room, I glanced back and saw her staring after me with a puzzled, doubtful expression. On an impulse, I came back. "If there is anything I can do," she said doubtfully. "It's very kind of you." We were both silent. Then she said, "I wish I knew. It's difficult. No, I don't think anyone can help me. But thank you for offering to do so." That seemed final, so I went. But as I did so, I wondered. We are not used to mysteries in St. Mary Mead. So much is this the case that as I emerged from the gate, I was pounced upon. Miss Hartnell is very good at pouncing in a heavy and cumbrous way. "I saw you!" she exclaimed with ponderous humor, "and I was so excited! Now you can tell us all about it." "About what?" "The mysterious lady. Is she a widow? Or has she a husband somewhere?" I really couldn't say. She didn't tell me.
How very peculiar! One would certainly one would think she would be certain to mention something casually. It almost looks, doesn't it, as though she had a reason for not speaking."
I really don't see that.
"Ah! But as dear Miss Marple says, you are so unworldly, dear Vicar. Tell me, has she known Dr. Haydock long?"
She didn't mention him, so I don't know."
"Really? But what did you talk about then?
Pictures, music, books. I said truthfully. Miss Hartnell, whose only topics of conversation are the purely personal, looks suspicious and unbelieving. Taking advantage of a momentary hesitation on her part as to how to proceed next, I bade her good night and walked rapidly away. I called in at a house farther down the village and returned to the vicarage by the garden gate, passing as I did so the danger point of Miss Marple's garden. However, I did not see how it was humanly possible for the news of my visit to Miss Lestrade to have yet reached her ears, so I felt reasonably safe. As I latched the gate, it occurred to me I would just step down to the shed in the garden, which young Lawrence Redding was using as a studio, and see for myself how Griselda's portrait was progressing. I append a rough sketch here, which will be useful in the light of what after happenings, only sketching in such details as are necessary. So, actually, my dear scholars, we have a little map, a little sketch, which will give us a layout of what's going on in the story. Ta-da! So this will give you a loose layout of what's happening, if you can see it all right, my dear scholars, of all the locations in the overall. Okay. I had no idea there was anyone in the studio. There had been no voices from within to warn me, and I suppose that my own footsteps made no noise upon the grass. I opened the door, and then stopped awkwardly on the threshold. For there were two people in the studio, and the man's arms were round the woman, and he was kissing her passionately. The two people were the artist, Lawrence Redding, and Mrs. Prothero. Ooh, so it wasn't Lettuce, and it wasn't Griselda either. So that's what Marple meant. Oh my goodness gracious. I backed out perceptibly and beat a retreat to my study. There I sat down in a chair, took out my pipe, and thought things over. The discovery had come as a great shock to me, especially since my conversation with Lettuce that afternoon. I had felt fairly certain that there was some kind of understanding growing up between her and the young man. Moreover, I was convinced that she herself thought so. I felt positive that she had no idea of the artist's feelings for her stepmother. A nasty tangle. I paid a grudging tribute to Miss Marple. She had not been deceived, but had evidently suspected the true state of things with a fair amount of accuracy. I entirely misread her meaning glance at Griselda. I had never dreamed of considering Mrs. Prothero in the matter. There had always been a suggestion of Caesar's wife. Excuse me. Another water. There had always been. Where am I? Oh, yeah. There had always been rather a suggestion of Caesar's wife about Miss Prothero, a quiet, self-contained woman whom one would not suspect of any great depths of feeling. I had got to this point in my meditations when a tap on my study window aroused me. I got up and went to it. Mrs. Prothero was standing outside. I opened the window and she came in, not waiting for an invitation on my part. She crossed the room in a breathless sort of way and dropped down on the sofa. I had the feeling that I had never really seen her before. The quiet, self-contained woman that I knew had vanished. In her place was a quick-breathing, desperate creature. For the first time, I realized that Anne Prothero was beautiful. She was a brown-haired woman with a pale face and very deep-set gray eyes. She was flushed now, and her breast heaved. It was as though a statue had suddenly come to life. I blinked my eyes at the transformation.
I thought it best to come, she said. You saw just now?
I bowed my head. She said very quietly,
We love each other.
and even in the middle of her evident distress and agitation, she could not keep a little smile from her lips. The smile of a woman who sees something very beautiful and wonderful. I still said nothing, and she added presently,
I suppose to you that seems very wrong.
Can you expect me to say anything else, Miss Prothero?
No? No, I suppose not.
I went on, trying to make my voice as gentle as possible. You are a married woman. She interrupted me.
Oh, I know, I know. Do you think I haven't gone over all that again and again? I'm not a bad woman, really. I'm not, and things aren't as you might think they are.
I said gravely, I'm glad of that. She asked rather timorously,
Are you going to tell my husband?
I said rather dryly. There seems to be a general idea that a clergyman is incapable of behaving like a gentleman. That is not true. She threw me a grateful glance.
I'm so unhappy. Oh, I'm so dreadfully unhappy. I can't go on. I simply can't go on, and I don't know what to do.
Her voice rose with a slightly hysterical note in it.
You don't know what my life is like. I've been miserable with Lucius from the beginning. No woman could be happy with him. I wish he was dead. It's awful, but I do. I'm desperate. I tell you, I'm desperate.
She started and looked over at the window. What was that? I thought I heard something. Oh, no, that's her saying it.
What was that? I thought I heard someone. Perhaps it's Lawrence.
I went over to the window, which I had not closed as I had thought. I stepped out and looked down the garden, but there was no one in sight. Yet I was almost convinced that I too had heard someone. Or perhaps it was her certainty that had convinced me. When I re-entered the room, she was leaning forward, drooping her head down. She looked the picture of despair. She said again,
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
I came and sat down beside her. I said the things I thought it was my duty to say, and tried to say them with the necessary conviction, uneasily conscious all the time that the same morning I had given voice to the sentiment that a world without Colonel Prothero in it would be improved for the better. Above all, I begged her to do nothing rash. To leave her home and her husband was a very serious step. I don't suppose I convinced her. I have lived long enough in the world to know that arguing with anyone in love is next door to useless. But I do think my words brought to her some measure of comfort. When she rose to go, she thanked me and promised to think over what I had said. Nevertheless, when she had gone, I felt very uneasy. I felt that hitherto I had misjudged Anne Prothero's character. She impressed me now as a very desperate woman, the kind of woman who would stick at nothing once her emotions were aroused. And she was desperately, wildly, madly in love with Lawrence Redding, a man several years younger than herself. I didn't like it. Hmm. So, my dear scholars, should we do one more chapter? What do you think? Already we have a scandal that's been revealed in the village, and one that Miss Marple actually pegged, and that the vicar didn't. Dr. Zane's sure. Julian 20, how's your voice? My voice is okay. It is a little difficult doing the vicar's voice the way I am, but it's okay. I think I can manage one more chapter. This book is so easy to read. Just hydrating a bit. Excuse me. Julian 20, do one more then. Alright, let's do one more, my dear scholars. It's a little bit longer, but not by much. Excuse me. Chapter 4. I had entirely forgotten what we had asked Lawrence Redding to dinner I had entirely forgotten that we had asked Lawrence Redding to dinner that night. When Griselda burst in and scolded me, pointing out that it lacked 2 minutes to dinner time, I was quite taken aback. I hope everything will be all right, Griselda called up the stairs after me. I've thought over what you said at lunch, and I've really thought of some quite good things to eat. I may say in passing that our evening meals amply bore out Griselda's assertion that things went much worse when she tried than when she didn't. The menu was ambitious in conception, and Mary seemed to have taken a perverse pleasure in seeing how best she could alternate undercooking and overcooking. Some oysters which Griselda had ordered, and which would seem to be beyond the reach of incompetence, we were unfortunately not able to sample, as we had nothing in the house to open them with, an omission which was discovered only when the moment for eating them arrived. I had rather doubted whether Lawrence Redding would put in an appearance. He might very easily have sent an excuse. However, he arrived punctually enough, and the four of us went in to dinner. Lawrence Redding has an undeniably attractive personality. He is, I suppose, about 30 years of age. He has dark hair, but his eyes are of a brilliant, almost startling blue. He is the kind of young man who does everything well. He is good at games, an excellent shot, a good amateur actor, and can tell a first-rate story. He is capable of making any party go. He has, I think, Irish blood in his veins. He is not at all one's idea of the typical artist, yet I believe he is a clever painter in the modern style. I know very little of painting myself. It was only natural that on this particular evening he should appear a shade distrait. On the whole, he carried off things very well. I don't think Griselda or Dennis noticed anything wrong. Probably I should not have noticed anything myself if I had not known beforehand. Griselda and Dennis were particularly gay, full of jokes about Dr. Stone and Miss Cram, the local scandal. It suddenly came home to me with something of a pain that Dennis is nearer Griselda's age than I am. He calls me Uncle Len, but her Griselda. It gave me somehow a lonely feeling. I must, I think, have been upset by Mrs. Prothero. I am not usually given to such unprofitable reflections. Griselda and Dennis went rather far now and then, but I hadn't the heart to check them. I've always thought it a pity that the mere presence of a clergyman should have a dampening effect. Lawrence took a gay part in the conversation. Nevertheless, I was aware of his eyes continually straying to where I sat, and I was not surprised when after dinner he maneuvered to get me into the study. As soon as we were alone, his manner changed. "Your surprise our secret, sir," he said. "What are you going to do about it?" I could speak far more plainly to Redding than I could to Miss Prothero, and I did so. He took it very well. "Of course," he said when I had finished, "you're bound to say all this. You're a parson. I don't mean that in any way offensively. As a matter of fact, I think you're probably right. But this isn't the usual sort of thing between Anne and me." I told him that people had been saying that particular phrase since the dawn of time, and a queer little smile creased his lips. "You mean everyone thinks their case is unique?" "Perhaps so.
But one thing you must believe. He assured me that so far there was nothing wrong in it. And he said it was one of the truest, most loyal women that ever lived. What was going to happen, he didn't know. If this was only a book, he said gloomily, the old man would die, and a good riddance to everybody. I reproved him. Oh, I didn't mean I was going to stick him in the back with a knife, though I'd offered my best thanks to anyone else who did so. There's not a soul in the world who's got a good word to say for him. I rather wonder the first Miss Prithros didn't do him in. I met her once years ago, and she looked quite capable of it. One of those calm, dangerous women. He goes blustering along, stirring up trouble everywhere, mean as the devil, and with a particularly nasty temper. You don't know what Anne has had to stand from him. If I had a penny in the world, I'd take her away without any much ado. Then I spoke to him very earnestly. I begged him to leave St. Mary Mead. By remaining there, he could only bring greater unhappiness on Anne Prothero than was already her lot. People would talk, the matter would get to Colonel Prothero's ears, and things would be made infinitely worse for her. Lawrence protested. Nobody knows a thing about it except you, Padre. My dear young man, you underestimate the detective instinct of village life. In St. Mary Mead, everyone knows your most intimate affairs. There's no detective in England equal to a spinster lady of uncertain age with plenty of time on her hands. A description of a certain someone in this book, I suppose. He said he said easily that was all right. Everyone thought it was letters. Has it occurred to you, I asked, that possibly Lettice might think so herself? He seemed quite surprised by the idea. Lettice, he said, didn't care a hang about him. He was sure of that. She's a queer sort of girl. Always seems in a kind of dream, and yet underneath, I believe she's really rather practical. I believe all that vague stuff's a pose. Lettice knows jolly well what she's doing. There's a funny vindictive streak in her. The queer thing is that she hates Anne, simply loathes her, and yet Anne's been a perfect angel to her always. I did not, of course, take his word for this last. To infatuated young men, their immorata always behaves like an angel. Still, to the best of my observation, Anne had always behaved to her stepdaughter with kindness and fairness. I had been surprised myself that afternoon at the bitterness of Lettice's tone. I just saw the hydrate. Thank you, Yumiko. Where am I? Oh, yeah. We had to leave the conversation there, because Griselda and Dennis burst in upon us and said I was not to make Lawrence behave like an old fogey. Oh, dear, said Griselda, throwing herself into an armchair. How he would like a thrill of some kind. A murder. Or even a burglary. I don't suppose there's anyone much worth burglaring, said Lawrence, trying to enter into her mood. Unless we stole Miss Hartnell's false teeth. They do click horribly, said Griselda. But you're wrong about there being no one worthwhile. There's some marvellous old silver at Old Hall. Treacherous salts and a Charles the Second Taza. All kinds of things like that. Worth thousands of pounds, I believe. The old man would probably shoot you with an army revolver, said Dennis. Just the sort of thing he'd enjoy doing. Oh, we'd get in first and hold him up, said Griselda. Who's got a revolver? I've got a Mauser pistol, said Lawrence. Have you? How exciting! Why did you have it? Souvenir of the war, said Lawrence briefly. Old Prothero was showing the silver to Stone today, volunteered Dennis. Old Stone was pretending to be no end interested in it. I thought they'd quarreled about the borough, said Griselda. Oh, they've made that up, said Dennis. I can't think what people want to grub about in boroughs for anyway. The man's stone puzzles me, said Lawrence. I think he must be very absent-minded. You'd swear sometimes he knew nothing about his own subject. That's love, said Dennis. Sweet Gladys Cram, you are no shame. Your teeth are white and fill me with delight. Come fly with me, my bride-to-be, and at the Blue Boar on the bedroom floor.
That's enough, Dennis, I said. Well, said Lawrence Redding, I must be off. Thank you very much, Mrs. Clement, for a very pleasant evening. Griselda and Dennis saw him off. Dennis returned to the study alone. Something had happened to ruffle the boy. He wandered about the room aimlessly, frowning and kicking the furniture. Our furniture is so shabby already that it can hardly be damaged further, but I felt impelled to utter a mild protest. Sorry, said Dennis. He was silent for a moment and then burst out. What an absolute rotten thing gossip is! I was a little surprised. What's the matter? I asked. I don't know whether I ought to tell you. I was more and more surprised. It's such an absolutely rotten thing, Dennis said again. Going round and saying things, not even saying them, hinting them. No, I'm damned sorry if I'll tell you. It's too absolutely rotten. I looked at him curiously, but I did not press him further. I wondered very much, though. It's very unlike Dennis to take anything to heart. Griselda came in at that moment. Miss Weatherby's just run up, she said. Miss Lestrade went out at 8:15 and hasn't come in yet. Nobody knows where she's gone. Why should they know? But it isn't to Dr. Haydock's. Miss Weatherby does know that, because she telephoned to Miss Hartnell, who lives next door to him, and who would have been sure to see her. It's a mystery to me, I said, how anyone ever gets any nourishment in this place. They must eat their meals standing up by the window, so as to be sure of not missing anything. And that's not all, said Griselda, bubbling with pleasure. They found out about the Blue Boar. Dr. Stone and Miss Cram have got rooms next door to each other. But, she waved an impressive forefinger, no communicating door. That, I said, must be very disappointing to everybody. At which Griselda laughed. Thursday started badly. Two of the ladies of my parish elected to quarrel about the church decorations. I was called in to adjudicate between two middle-aged ladies, each of whom was literally trembling with rage. If it had not been so painful, it would have been quite an interesting physical phenomenon. Sorry. Then I had to reprove two of our choir boys for persistent sweet-sucking during the hours of divine service, and I had an uneasy feeling that I was not doing the job as wholeheartedly as I should have done. Then our organist, who is distinctly touchy, had taken offense and had to be smoothed down. And four of my poor parishioners declared open rebellion against Miss Hartnell, who came to me bursting with rage about it. I was going home when I met Colonel Prothero. He was in a high good humor, having sentenced 3 poachers in his capacity as magistrate. Oh, here we go. Sure. Firmness! He shouted in his stentorian voice. He is slightly deaf and raises his voice accordingly, as deaf people often do. That's what's needed nowadays. Firmness! Make an example. That rogue archer came out yesterday and is vowing vengeance against me, I hear. Impertinent scoundrel! Threatened men live long as the saying goes. I'll show him what his vengeance is worth next time I catch him taking my pheasants. Lax! We're too lax nowadays. I believe in showing a man up for what he is. You're always being asked to consider a man's wife and children. Damn nonsense. Fiddlesticks! Why should a man escape the consequence of his acts just because he whines about his wife and children? It's all the same to me, no matter what a man is. Doctor, lawyer, clergyman, poacher, drunken wastrel. If you catch him on the wrong side of the law, let the law punish him. You agree with me, I'm sure. You forget, I said. My calling obliges me to respect one quality above all others. The quality of mercy. Well, I'm a just man. No one can deny that. I did not speak, and he said sharply, Why don't you answer? A penny for your thoughts, man. I hesitated. Then I decided to speak. I was thinking, I said, that when my time comes I should be sorry if the only plea I had to offer was that of justice, because it might mean that only justice would be meted out to me. Pah! What we need is a little militant Christianity. I've always done my duty, I hope. Well, no more of that. I'll be along that this evening, as I said. We'll make it 6:15 instead of 6, if you don't mind. I've got to see a man in the village. That would suit me quite well. He flourished his stick and strode away. Turning, I ran into Hawes. I thought he looked distinctly ill this morning. I had meant to upbraid him mildly for various matters in his province which had been muddled or shelved, but seeing his white-stained face, I felt that the man was ill. I said as much, and he denied it, but not very vehemently. Finally, he confessed that he was not feeling too fit, and already ready to accept my advice of going home to bed. I had a hurried lunch, and went out to do some visits. Griselda had gone to London by the cheap Thursday train. Another drink of water. I came in about 3:45 with the intention of sketching the outline of my Sunday sermon. Excuse me. But Mary told me that Mr. Redding was waiting for me in the study. I found him pacing up and down with a worried face. He looked white and haggard. He turned abruptly at my entrance. Look here, sir. I've been thinking over what you said yesterday. I've had a sleepless night thinking about it. You're right. I've got to cut and run. My dear boy, I said, you're right in what you said about Anne. I'll only bring trouble on her by staying here. She's too good for anything else. I see. I've got to go. I've made things hard enough for her as it is. Heaven help me. I think you have made the only decision possible, I said. I know that it is a hard one, but believe me, it will be for the best in the end. I could see that he thought that was the kind of thing easily said by someone who didn't know what he was talking about. You'll look after Anne. She needs a friend. You can rest assured that I will do everything in my power. Thank you, sir. He wrung my hand. You're a good sort, Padre. I shall see her to say goodbye this evening, and I shall probably pack up and go tomorrow. No good prolonging the agony. Thanks for letting me have the shed to paint in. I'm sorry not to have finished Mrs. Clement's portrait. Don't worry about that, my dear boy. Goodbye, and God bless. When he had gone, I tried to settle down to my sermon, but with very poor success. I kept thinking of Lawrence and Anne Prothero. I had rather an unpalatable cup of tea, cold and black, and at 5:30 the telephone rang. I was informed that Mr. Abbott of Lower Farm was dying, and would I please come at once. I rang up Old Hall immediately, for Lower Farm was nearly 2 miles away, and I could not possibly get back by 6:15. I have never succeeded in learning to ride a bicycle. I was told, however, that Colonel Prothero had just started out in the car, so I departed, leaving word with Mary that I had been called away,
but would try to be back by 6:30 or soon after. And we'll stop there, my dear scholars. Ooh, I mean, we haven't gotten to the mystery at all, but there is some delicious scandal in this book. Oh my goodness. And it is so much fun to read. Agatha Christie really, really is a wonderful writer at this. Oh, Julian 20, great reading. Yes, it is. It's a little hard. I am debating if I should keep doing the voice of the vicar through the entire thing, but I think I can manage if I soften it a little bit. Unit 20 saying in the background, yes, and we have our little map here to tell us where everything's located. So we're setting up all these little things that are going on. Oh, oh, I can't wait till the story really starts kicking in. But it's really enjoyable. It's really fun. Oh my goodness gracious. So, my dear scholars, next week, if everything goes according to plan, that's always the big thing. If everything goes according to plan, Monday we will be playing more Spirit of the North. And then Thursday, we'll be continuing with more chapters of Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage. Oh my goodness gracious. Julian 20, thank you for the story. Oh, thank you, Julian 20. So then, let's see who we can raid tonight. Okay. Just have to get them. Dr. Zayden, thank you. Aw, thank you, Dr. Zayden. Is there anyone going on? I don't know if there's anyone reading tonight. Let me double check. I don't really see any readers. So would anyone be against us raiding raiding a gaming stream? Because I see Wardud is playing more Baldur's Gate 3. I think we did do a Baldur's Gate 3 one though. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, let's raid Wardud tonight. Let's be. I don't think we've raided Wardud all that often. Okay then, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye-bye. Now, about everything that happened this early.